Today is November 10th. I just watched that little NASA documentary on Kepler and the exoplanet hunt. Bill Barucki, the guy that thought up of Kepler, of the ability to find these small worlds outside of our atmosphere, needing to, send up a telescope into outer space. And by making, detection devices that could pinpoint the light curves where the smaller object was orbiting the star, and depending on how bright or dim that light curve was would determine if there's something there. It took him 25 years to say well, I remember on the little documentary, it's Bill published his paper, and then 25 years later Kepler was sent up. And a big reason why they didn't want to do it is because the search for exoplanets had, quote from another presenter, it had a snake oil sheen, meaning there had been 50 years of claims of finding exoplanets, but no verified data, as they pointed out. And the very first planet that was found apparently was a brown dwarf, which had an orbital period of 4 days around its host star. And everybody was, what's going on with this? Is this really true? And then another team verified the findings, and then they said they went through the peer review system where they had 3 reviewers go over the paper and make sure everything was, in order. And then they were like, oh well, now this Jupiter-sized planet is orbiting around its star in 4 days, an orbital period of 4 days, which was at the time impossible, because the Jupiter and Saturn-sized objects were supposed to be way, 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 way out and take, many thousands of days to orbit its host star. But as they said, that the exoplanets that they're finding basically ignore all their models for planet formation. And I think that's the big thing here, is when you look at how long it took for them just to send up a telescope to find exoplanets, 25 years from the date Bill Barucki published his paper on how to find them to sending up the Kepler to actually start finding them. We learned that even people inside of the establishment who have wonderful ideas and actually know what they're doing, they get ignored for many decades. So to actually understand that these stars are not fusion powered and that they cool, shrink, and die and become what are called planets, this is never going to get accepted. And the only people who are going to learn about this are the people who have open minds, and they can actually dig through the internet and find a lot of the writings I've been making, and find a lot of the writings that Anthony Abruzzo made, and Lord Kelvin made, and Alexander Oparin made back in the early 1900s, to actually find where this hypothesis was lying, where this theory was actually lying. It was covered with a lot of other things, and people just gloss right over it with, their myopic nature. With a lot of scientists these days, they're not trained to be creative, so they just gloss over all those times past scientists were creative, and they just ignore a lot of the ideas unless it fits into what they were told in school currently. So a lot of this understanding, a lot of the philosophy that we need was actually there many hundreds of years ago, but was ignored because of, the pseudoscience of fusion star models and other types of pseudoscience such as dark matter and Big Bang, which, encapsulate people's minds. It focuses on that, and it focuses the public on these are the main ideas. No, they're not. Those aren't the real scientific questions we should be wondering. Those are the dead-end pseudoscience ideas that keep people occupied. Also, with the documentary with NASA, I noticed that there was kind of a feeling I got from the people being interviewed that they don't look at nature from the perspective of a young child. They look at nature with the idea that they already know what's there, which is why it took Bill Baruch 25 years just to get up a silly little telescope to find the damn things. These NASA scientists, they all believe it's all been figured out before. So there's nothing new to discover. That's why it took this guy 25 years to just get up a little telescope. When they look through telescopes these days, they already know what's there. They already know what to expect. So when something out of the ordinary comes around, they get extra scrutiny and they get examined, and people still doubt the actual understanding that we're having here, is that these new worlds that we're finding are into the hundreds of billions. Alright, I think that's enough.